Now, I know they do look like horses, they're more closely related to a donkey, so I don't suggest ever trying to pet a zebra. They'll probably try to bite at your hand if you did. That right behind them is going to be our Asian water buffalo. Now, you guys might be saying, Jeffrey, why are the Asian water buffalo in Africa? And that's just simply due to the fact that this is the part of our safari that has the most water throughout it. And then most adapt to watery and muddy environments, so much degrees. Now here's one of our giraffes, the world's tallest animal. They stand at about 18 feet tall. The males and the females are going to be about 16 feet tall. Don't worry, we'll be seeing a lot more giraffes up the road a little bit.
Yo, that's like my dream animal, bro, giraffe.
Right.
So some of our scimitar horned oryx are coming up on the left-hand side. Now these guys are actually where the myth of the unicorn comes from. And that's because from the side it looks like they only have one horn instead of two.
Wait, unicorns on real?
With that, these guys actually went completely extinct in the wild back in the year 2000. But thanks to conservation efforts, we were able to reintroduce about 25 of them back into the wild, and that number's now grown to be about 600. So they are so far a success story, which is what we love to see here.
Oh, look, geese.
Now we can start to see some more giraffes over there on the right-hand side. Now giraffes, they do not walk like normal animals. They wear its opposite corner feet at the same time. They actually walk with the same legs on the same side at the same time. If they didn't do that, they'd actually fall over and lose their balance, which is a pretty high up fall for them. Their tongues are also not wet and smooth like ours. They're actually rough and dry. That helps them with being able to grab onto things in the wilderness. And those other guys in the distance back there are the common eland. Those guys have a better vertical jump than LeBron James when startled. They can jump 6 feet straight into the air. And those have faint white stripes on their side that work as their camouflage. Now this is our Savannah Sunset Resort. This is our hotel that we have smack dab in the middle of our safari. It is a 2-night minimum stay. Our tents can accommodate parties between 2 to 10 people. And this right here is our giraffe feeding platform, where every day at 10:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. you can come and feed the giraffes if you'd like, if you are staying at the hotel. It also comes with free admission and some of the theme park climbing. So the only time you really ever see one of these bears up in a tree is if there's some really low-hanging branches they can pull themselves up on. Or if they feel threatened by another predator, they'll try to raise their babies up into a tree. Besides that, you really always find these guys down on the ground. Another one right there. Trying to keep my eyes open. Hopefully we can find another bear or two as we go along here. There's going to be, oh yeah, there's a few more over there. So now, like I said, these guys don't really dig out those holes. They normally dig out those holes to hibernate in. They hibernate during the wintertime in order to conserve energy, because all their food either migrates south or dies off in the wintertime. For their great adventure, we feed our bears 365 days a year. So there's no need for them to hibernate in, so no need to conserve that energy.
That was
and they do
knocked
still
out.
dig out those holes just out of natural instinct, but they won't use them to sleep over too long inside of. They use them only to take naps inside of.
Yeah, you saw that? It's so funny.
And now we can see this bear right here eating that sand-like powder off the ground. That is a protein powder that we give to the bears every single day. So it's kind of like the duckweed in terms of it's extremely healthy and yummy for them. And we do have a couple of bears swimming over there right now. And the bears are not allowed inside Hurricane Harbor, so this is the next best option for them. Now they are not quite the biggest bears you can find in the wild here in North America. The grizzly bears are about 100 pounds bigger than these guys.
Definitely don't want to do that.
And these guys are not picky eaters whatsoever. These guys will eat any meat, fish, fruit, vegetable, or berry you put in front of them. As long as it is not rotten or spoiled, these guys will eat it. A few more guys over there on the left as we approach our next section of the tour. Hopefully there's one final guy over here. He was out and about earlier, well, not most of the summaries. Then those big guys closer up, those are Roosevelt elk. Those guys are not really found here in New Jersey. They're mostly found in the Pacific Northwest, somewhere like your Oregon and your Washington State. And they're actually the reason why you see those cages around all of our trees and telephone poles is because when they grow out those antlers, they have what's called velvet. And that velvet is extremely itchy, so they'll try to scrape that off on all the trees, and that can highly damage our trees. So we do try our best to protect all our living animals, whether it is an animal or a tree. That right along with them here is our bison. These are the largest land mammal you can find here in North America. Now you can see some of the babies, they're marked that orangey color. They don't get to be that darker brownish color until a couple of years later on into life. If you see those horns growing out of their heads, those are attached to their skulls, so they're one and done off forever if they do lose those horns. And you also may notice a lot of them are losing their fur, and that's because it's summertime. Their fur is incredibly well at insulating heat, so much so that during the winter time, snow that falls on them will not melt, it will just continuously get bigger. And it will continue doing that until it gets hot enough outside to melt it, so that's why they shed that fur. It's in order to make sure they don't get too overheated during the summertime. There used to be a whole lot more of those bison across North America, but unfortunately due to westward expansion, their numbers greatly declined. That's because they left running across their newly built railroads and train tracks, and it was eventually deemed to be cheaper to just hunt those guys down, rather than continuously pay to rebuild those things every time they run across them and damage them. So you can see some of our radar we just went past there. Those are the first of 3 rat types we have out here in our tour. So rat type does mean flightless bird. So those guys cannot fly, they can run up to 35 miles an hour. So they're pretty fast runners. And you can also see that this guy has that black feathering around his neck. That's how you can tell that's a male. The females will not get that. That's how you can tell the difference between them. And they kind of have a reverse around the rest of nature, and that's because once the female lays her eggs, which could be about 20 all at one time, it then becomes the male's job to incubate the eggs and raise the babies. Typically it is the female's job all the way throughout the process. So that's why I say they have a reverse around the rest of nature. There's a few more of our bison over here and a few more of our Roosevelt elk on the left-hand side as well. So a few of the animals we just talked about are coming up on either side again.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now for the Roosevelt elk, we saw a few of them without those antlers just a few minutes ago. Those antlers is how you can tell the difference between the males and the females. Now they are called the white rhinos. Originally they were supposed to be called the wide rhinos. It was a mistranslation between languages that led to the name white, even though they have more of a gray color anyway. Now their horns are made out of keratin. That's the same thing as our hair and our fingernails. So when they're poached for those horns, it's really not so valuable of a substance as it does grow out of all of our heads and all of our hands. If they ever lose those horns, as long as the root stays intact, they are able to regrow them.
Zebra.
There are a group of rhinos together called a crash, and it's due to their terrible eyesight. They'll often run into each other, other animals, or other objects.
That's my first time seeing a zebra.
Now coming on the left over here, we can start to see some of our African elephants. You can tell they're African elephants by looking at their ears. They're in the shape of the continent of Africa. They can also use those giant ears as giant fans. During warm summer days, they'll cool their body temperature down. Now their trunks are an elongation of both their upper lip and their nose. They can use those trunks to knock something down as big as a tree or pick up something as small as a peanut. And although older elephants here, they're now in their 50s, they're mostly missing their tusk, and that's because they wear down over time. But when they are a bit younger, their tusks are still a bit longer. If you ever notice that the left and the right one is a bit longer than the other one, the shorter one is their more dominant side. So elephants are lefties and righties just like humans are. And if they look a little bit dirty, that's okay. They use dirt as a natural suntan lotion to protect themselves from the sun the same way humans do. Now elephants are also what's known as a keystone species, meaning in order for other animals to survive, they need elephants to survive. And one of the main things they do is just simply knock down trees, and that does 2 things for other animals. One is helps clear paths for migration for wider animals like our rhinos, where trees are more densely populated and hard to fit between. Knocking them down creates paths for migration. And then the other thing is, in a country like Africa, where food is few and far between, knocking down those trees helps create a whole lot more vegetation, especially for our smaller animals, again like our rhinos and our zebras, so they don't starve. Creates a whole lot more food. Now on the right hand side, in just a moment here, we're going to see a whole lot more of our zebras and Asian water buffalo, but on the left hand side we can still see some of our elephants over there. Now here they come. Now a zebra is black with white stripes. You can tell by looking at their noses that's their actual skin, whereas the rest of their body is their fur. A group of zebras together in the wild are called a dazzle. That helps confuse predators. They can't tell where one zebra starts and ends. It just looks like one giant zebra. And we have a very small baby bison over there on the right-hand side in the water. There's a couple babies, but this guy is a bit smaller than the rest of them. Oh, and he just did a little bit of a run there. That was so cute and adorable. And a whole lot more of them on this left-hand side now as we wait to go on by.
Bison. Bison.
Oh, and I did miss them, but if we look back over our right shoulders, there are some llamas back there. And those llamas are a good safe distance from us, and that's because llamas can spin onto you from up to 20 feet away. And if your llama were to spin onto you, it isn't even actual spit, it's stomach bile. That stomach bile can actually burn your skin, permanently stain your clothing, and overall smells really, really bad. So if you ever are within 20 feet of a llama, please never cause any llama drama, or they might just spin onto you. Now, llamas also used to help us travel back in the day before we had cars. Llamas could carry up to about 100 pounds on their back. So before we had cars, to bring llamas along with us for our journeys to put 100 pounds of our supplies on their back rather than trying to pull it all or carry it on our own backs. So as we go past these bison, it looks like we have a little bit of a gap between us and our next animal. So I do want to quickly remind everybody that our safari is 350 total acres, and sometimes we may have to go a minute between animals, and although that is slightly inconvenient for us, it is extremely convenient for these animals as this is their permanent home. So we try to give them as much open, free roaming ability as possible. Thank you and excuse me. So, like I said, it is 350 total acres, so we don't want our animals feeling like they're all condensed into one tiny little area, so that's why we give them all this free roaming ability. Although I do see a few more ray over there on the right-hand side, and a whole bunch more on the left actually as well. Now, I do like to make fun of their knees, saying that they look backwards, but they're the ones that can run 35 miles an hour, so maybe it's our knees that are backwards. Same with all three of our rattlets, all of them have those backwards knees, and all three of them are faster than us. Hopefully those fallow deer are approaching any moment now. They were somewhere in this area, my first lap, and we haven't seen them yet, so they're probably back here again. It is the females that are much more impressive than the males, and that's because a female kangaroo can actually pause her pregnancy for up to 11 months at a time if they don't think conditions are right to raise a baby. The female kangaroo is also the only animal that can produce 2 separate kinds of milk at the same time to ensure both babies survive. If they have 2 different babies at 2 different stages of life. You can also use those tails for 2 different purposes. One is a third leg, so their legs cannot move independently like we do. So if they want to walk rather than hop, they have to stand on their hands and their tail in order to do so. Or when they're hopping along, they can use that tail as a counterweight. When hopping along, they can move it left and right to make sure they don't fall over. And here comes our emus right here on the left. If their movement looks familiar, you might recognize it from either Jurassic Park or Jurassic World, as the movement of the raptors comes directly from the movement of the emus. If you see those black dots on the side of their head, those are not their eyes, those are their ears. So they don't get cartilage like humans do, they just have 2 holes in the side of their head. As we go past a couple of final kangaroos before we enter into our Tigris Asiana, or to our tigers.
Yo.
So first we're going to see our Bengal tiger, and she is by herself. And that's because they're normally a solitary animal, and I do say normally for a reason, but we'll get a bit more into that in just a minute. For now, I'll let you know the Bengals come in 4 different colors. I have a golden tabby, white on white, black, sleep up to 18 hours a day. I know most of us wish we get just about half that amount of sleep each night. And a lion's roar can be heard up to 5 miles away, so if you ever did stay at our Savannah Sunset Resort, no need to set an alarm, as you'll hear these guys bright and early at about 5 a.m. And those were all our females. We get kind to see those males off in the distance on the right-hand side over there. They're kind of all hanging out in the trees over there, laying down. It's a little hard to see, but they're over there. And so with that, we are now approaching our Black Bear Ridge, which, yes, you correctly guessed, it is home to the tigers. No, not really. It's going to be home to the black bears, hence the name Black Bear Ridge. Although there will be tigers a little bit later on in our safari, no need to worry. I used to use a fake animal for that joke, and then everyone would get upset when that animal never approached. That's why I use the tigers now, because the tigers are still coming. Now on the left, we can start to see those black bears over there. Now these guys are more afraid of us than we are of them, so if you ever saw a black bear in the wild, you want to make yourself as big, loud, and scary as possible to scare them off. What you don't want to do is run from them, because that will show them that you have fear, and that's when they'll start chasing you. What you really don't want to do at that point is climb a tree. These guys are amazing climbers, so these guys will follow you right on up that tree. We do have another buddy coming up on the right, and we're also going to have our baby bears coming up on the right-hand side as we make our left-hand turn in just a second. These baby bears are about 3 or 4 months old now. One of them is over by their mother, the other one is a bit more to the left inside the tall grass.
You see, I'm telling you, it wasn't a bear. Bears don't have tails like that.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't.
Oh, this guy's walking with his leg. That was really weird. I don't know if anybody else saw that for a second. He was dragging his legs along. And we can see a few more over on the left-hand side over here as well. Now, this is them at their full-grown size. Again, they are the smallest kind of bears you can find here in North America. It's not to say they can't grow to be another couple pounds bigger than these guys, but for the most part, that is them fully grown. Now on the left-hand side, that green stuff in the water is not algae. That's what we call duckweed. So algae would be terrible for the bears, but duckweed is extremely healthy and yummy for the bears. So to eat that stuff, it is a win-win scenario in terms of taste and health for them.
Wonder what it tastes like.
And it does look like those were our final bears, at least for the black bears, but there's no need to worry, because if you do want bears, we still have the brown bears coming up in about another 2 or 3 minutes, so no need to get upset quite yet about being done with the bears. And I did say they are normally solitary, and that's because we're about to see 5 of them living together, and that's because they are quintuplets born at the same time by the same mother. That's where they're able to get along good enough to hang out with each other. Now, a cool but sad fact is when they were born, they raised the world's population by a full 1%. So although that does sound cool, that also tells us how very few of them there are left in the world. When these guys were born, there was about 500 left in the world. That number is now sadly dropped to only about 300 left. So they are a critically endangered species. So definitely enjoy them while you can, because there's no promise that the next generation is ever going to get to see these guys. There used to be 9 subspecies of tigers. They are down to only 6 now. We can see 3 of them off in the back right there, and then there's 2 more right here. One thing I really like about them is if you look at those white dots in the back of their ears, those white dots help serve as artificial eyes for them in the wild. So if another predator wanted to try and eat them while they're distracted, either eating or drinking, they'll see those white dots, and that will deter them from attacking, because they'll think they're not actually distracted, when in all reality they are. We also have those stripes. They're completely unique to each individual tigers, and no 2 striped tigers share the same stripes. Here are those other 3. Now on the left-hand side, there's another pair of twins probably hiding behind that tall green grass in that tree. I think it's hard for us to see those orange tigers back there, where most animals don't see tigers as orange, they see them as green. So that makes this a perfect camouflage for them, and they're able to sneak up on their prey. They never even see them coming a lot of the time. Then they always see one of them for a second there. Actually, both of them. Hard to see. So 1 minute, you're just walking next to that tall green grass, and then the next moment, you're a tiger dinner. So we do have a gate going over there on the left-hand side. Now, I don't know if anybody is going into the park today, but for a temporary short amount of time, only through August 10th, we are giving shortened versions of the tour from inside the park. But basically, you start here, go halfway into the Americas, and then it ends here, rather than going through the rest of the tour behind us. So if you're going into the tour today and you missed me, you can try to have a second chance at seeing me again. Now these are the olive baboons. They got that name because of that olive colored fur. You can easily tell the difference between a male and a female because only the females get those red behinds, the males will not. The redder that behind gets just means she's born ready for a date with a male. Now you can see that guy walking right there. Their tails almost look broken, bent at those 90-degree angles, but they're meant to be bent like that. It works as a counterweight both when running and when climbing. And now as we come around this bend, some of our older guests might remember this red roller coaster track that used to be the Great American Scream Machine. Although nowadays we just call it the Great American Baboon Machine, since it's here for the baboons to use rather than for us to ride all over like we used to. Some days you'll see the baboons on it, but those are typically during the cooler days, as I'm assuming, I don't know for a fact, that metal probably gets warm in the heat. So on, I think it was Monday the other day when it was really not too nice out, they were all hanging out up on there because it wasn't too hot to go up on. And right there, that's another bit of recycled material from inside the park. That used to be a TP tent inside the Bugs Bunny Kids Land. So Six Flags just try to recycle and reuse as much as we can. And apparently it seems to be for the baboons every time. And right behind the baboons, right behind the TP tent, we will see our final animals out here in our tour today. Those yaks over there. I'll wait a moment until we get a bit closer to start talking about them now. So these yaks are mostly from Mongolia and Russia. There's only about 10,000 of them left in the wild, but that's alright because they're not too adept to living on their own anyway. However, there is over 14 million of them left on farms, and on those farms they're mostly used for their fur, both in clothing and in jackets. However, in certain countries they're still used for the meat. And those horns are no clear indication on gender, as all the males and the females all grow out those horns. So that's going to bring us to the end of our tour here today, so I do want to quickly remind everybody to please remain seated with those seatbelts fast until we get to the unload station. Until then, I'll take a moment to talk about our Save an Icon program, where if anybody's looking for an easy, cheap souvenir, for just $5, you can buy a Save an Icon pin, where all the proceeds help go towards saving the animal on the pin. So Six Flags does not make any money off those pins. This year, we're trying to help save the red-eyed tree frog and the tortoise. You guys can actually meet the tortoise if you like. You'll see them as you go down the exit ramp. Although we ask that you please don't stop there and rather go around the back of our reptile.